Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Bienvenue à la réunion numéro.
Welcome to meeting number 54 of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. We will continue our study on the experiences of female veterans at this meeting. And we have 3 witnesses this evening. From the Department of National Defense.
Master General Marc Bilodeau, Surgeon General, Canadian Armed Forces. Commodore Daniel Bouchard, Commander of Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group. Lieutenant General Lise Bourgon, Acting Chief of Military Personnel. And do we have our other witness on Zoom? Or yeah, okay. We do have also Lieutenant Colonel Andrea Tuca. I hope I've said your name right, Lieutenant Colonel, National Practice Leader Psychiatry, and so she's with us by video conference. We will have an opening remarks, I think, is it Lieutenant General Bourgon? You're giving the opening remarks on behalf of the group this evening, so we'll give you roughly 5 minutes for opening remarks. So if you want to turn your microphone on, you can give those remarks now, and then we'll go into questioning from the members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bonsoir à tous.
Good evening to all of you.
Gathered here on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, and I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our commitment to meaningful reconciliation with Indigenous leaders and people across the land. Je suis accompagnée ce soir du
I am joined today by Major General Bilodeau. To my right, Surgeon General.
When it comes to the professional and the technical aspect of medical and dental care for our members. With us virtually is Lieutenant Colonel Andrea Tuca, one of our mental health professionals. Je suis également accompagnée par le Commodore.
I'm also joined by Commodore Bouchard, to my left, Commander of the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group.
In the CAF, I am responsible for recruitment, training, retention, education, career management policy, pay and benefit, health services, military career transition, morale and welfare program, and a host of other support service. My day job is quite busy, as you heard. Je suis également, en plus, la championne de la...
As well, I am the defense champion for women.
And women's health are issues that we take very, very seriously. And we are pleased to be here to talk tonight about the health and the wellness of women's veterans. Je tiens à remercier le comité.
I would like to thank the committee for this very important study. I want to start by highlighting the work we've done so far to improve the health and well-being of women in the military, and also to talk about the issues we are still tackling.
Of my team, I have the privilege of leading an important initiative to improve health care for women in the military by identifying barriers within our current service delivery models and tackling those issues head-on. Currently, we are focused on 4 lines of effort. Donc, la première consiste à prévenir.
The first is injury and illness prevention.
About providing evidence and need-based care. The third is a quality and performance assessment within our health care clinics and our programs. Et la quatrième ligne d'effort.
And the fourth main line of effort is research and engagement, which is the foundation of the others.
Force, we know that illness and injury prevention and access to timely health care is linked to long-term physical and psychological well-being. For women in uniform, prevention begins with relevant, targeted, and evidence-based initiatives, such as our physical fitness requirements for women and our many mental health supports. La prévention comporte aussi des...
Prevention also includes standardized screening processes for serious illnesses such as early cancer detection.
When it comes to caring for our members, the CAF continues to maintain a world-class, evidence-based medical system. We do this by adopting best practices clinical care and integrating policies and programs that are specific and tailored to women in military setting, such as by adding clinical staff to our care delivery units within our own health clinic. Through our performance assessment, we regularly examine how well our clinical services are meeting the spectrum of women's health care needs. Et c'est grâce à la recherche.
And it's through research and engagement that we continue to seek a better understanding of health and mental health risk factors for women and how these are influenced by occupational demands, which have to do with the work in the military.
Occupational demands, it is important that we talk about military families as a whole. I often say that we recruit members, but we retain families. And the demand that we place on families are significant. So we continue to work on solutions to reduce the impact of military service on our families. Currently, we are rethinking how and why we move and sometimes separate families due to military service. So through Seamless Canada, a federal, provincial, territorial initiative that looks to address the impact that moving within Canada has on our military families, we are improving access to health care and child care services for our members and their family when they move to a different province and territory. We are also examining pre- and postnatal support and occupational assessment associated with fertility and reproduction. However, as we continue to care for the complex healthcare needs of women and families through our many initiatives, it remains clear that a comprehensive approach is what is required. Women and gender-diverse personnel deserve to have their health and wellness made a national priority from the time they put on the uniform through transition and retirement. Les vétérans et les vétéranes.
Veterans, men and women, have given their best to Canada, as each of us is sworn to do.
And deserves a special focus, like the focus my team and I have initiated. To be frank, women have not always received the special attention they deserve as women. Our needs are different than men, not better, not worse, simply different. Let's recognize these differences as a strength. So indeed, the CAF is changing for the better. So if we have healthier serving women, we will have healthier veterans. After all, we are all part of the military family. Donc, on attend avec impatience.
We are looking forward to your questions.
Merci, Miigwech.
Merci pour ces remarques.
Thank you for your opening statement. For the first round of questions, we have 4 different interventions, one from each party, in this order. First, the Conservative Party, then the Liberal Party, followed by the Bloc Québécois, and finally the NDP first. Mr. Fraser Tolmie from the Conservative Party for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to our guests for your interventions and for joining us tonight. As we did a little preamble to this meeting, we did say that we're here about finding facts and getting some information. I do have a list of questions, but one's recently popped into my mind, and so I'd just like to start off with that question, and I will ask Lieutenant General Lise Bourgeon. I was recently given some information that we have some pilots that used to be wing standard in the military, and they'd like to re-enroll. And they can't seem to be, they're not being able to re-enroll right now because the CDS used to be able to waive the fact that they didn't have a university degree. The CDS used to be able to waive that. Now it's the Ministry of National Defense, and that's taking 4 to 6 months, and we've got a backlog of needing pilots trained. And I'm just wondering, have you heard that? And if so, why is it taking 4 to 6 months? Why has the Ministry of National Defence stepped in when it's a requirement that should be the CDS?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The requirements for officers to have a degree, an officer corps degree, comes from the Somalia inquiries and the recommendation made to ensure that we had a better professionalized military officer corps. So that is came after the Somalia, and it is a ministerial authority to grant waivers for that. We clearly understand that with reconstitution, the space that we're at right now, and we are working on trying to facilitate this, and hopefully there'll be a solution forthcoming, but we're tracking this issue and we're working hard on finding a solution.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying that and for validating that question. So, as you know, the DND and the Veterans Affairs have different standards when assessing injuries and disabilities and determining whether or not they are service-related. This can lead to situations where a veteran is medically released from the CAF, and yet when they go to VAC for help, they are told that their injury is not, in fact, service-related. This creates a huge gap, and where many veterans end up falling through the cracks, which we've seen through numerous meetings. Why do DND and VAC have different injury assessment standards? And what needs to be done in order to harmonize these injury assessment standards?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. And one thing that I would like to, and I'll give the floor to General Bilodeau to come up with how we're doing the difference between VAC and CAF. But one thing that we clearly need to understand is that, some of our military members are being released medically for causes that are not linked to duty. Like if I develop diabetes today, I will be released medically in the forthcoming future. It cannot be attributed to military duty, but it's still a reason to be released medically from the CAF. So there are slightly different. I'll give the floor to General Bilodeau to talk about those differences.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the process to adjudicate and the criteria used to adjudicate is different between the two departments because we have different mandates. The Canadian Forces mandate is really to care for our members and not so much to look at benefits, but really the health care that they need. The Veterans Affairs mandate is different because it's more of a pension and benefit mandate that they have. Therefore, our criteria are looked at by a different lens. Our lens is really related to the care they need, the health care they need, while Veterans Affairs looking more at the law that drives basically benefits. Therefore, my goal, I do not have basically to make a determination on service relatedness because it doesn't matter for the care I provide them, with some exception for our reservists. So only our reservists require determination, and that the determination is made to decide if they're eligible or not for the care.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to merge a couple of points here that were made in the first question with regards to previous service, and you were talking about reserves. So, veterans automatically lose their security clearance the day that they release from the CAF, unless they start a new job that requires it the very next day. Many veterans lose their security clearance upon release and then find civilian employment that requires security clearance shortly after their release. Unfortunately, this means that they have to go through the whole process again to get their security clearance. What would need to be done in order to speed up this process or extend military personnel who have top secret security clearance in order to keep it a little bit longer should they find employment, and maybe speed up the process and create or reduce bureaucracy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good question. Sadly, this is not within the Chief Military Personnel authorities. This is more of a Vice Chief of Defense with our Director of General Security, so we can't really answer this question.
You've got about 10 seconds. So.
I have about 10 seconds, so I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it, and I'll leave some room for others to be able to ask some questions. I'm being kind tonight.
You took 14 seconds to say that. So. We'll subtract it from your next round. Yeah. Next 6 minutes, we have Mr. Daryl Sampson from the Liberal Party.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here today and, of course, for your service. We've had a number of meetings which have been very much focused on the veteran after they leave the military, of course. So the opportunity to speak with you today is that much more important because it's while the member is active and what is the process from being active, of course, and the transition question. So you talked, Madame Beaujean, about the barriers that women face and in the transition and some of the strategies that your team is putting together. Can you talk about that, expand on that, please?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. The barriers in the transition or the barriers into services?
Services, yeah.
And services.
Yeah, in your presentation, sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We can talk about the transition afterwards, but yeah.
And this is super interesting because this is a question that is very close to my heart. Because 36 years in the military, maritime helicopter pilot, I always felt like a square peg that had to fit in the round hole. I never felt like the rest. So I spend a lot of time on a fellowship looking at inclusion and diversity in the CAF. And I wish there was one answer, one thing that we could say this is, what is required, but it's across the spectrum. So inclusion across the spectrum. When we look at our human resources policy, when we look at our health services, when we look at our equipment, when we look at our succession planning, our moving through the careers, family services. I always go back to say that the CAF, the Canadian Armed Forces, were designed by men for men. And it's a reality that we have to adjust. But now we have to go back and look at everything we do, all our policies, and look at each and every one of them to make sure that women and diverse people feel like they belong in the CAF. So it's not one only piece. It's a gazillion, and that's a mathematical term that needs to be changed.
So there are different possibilities. So what strategies have you put in place to help the transition, if you will, or to face the challenges that you've talked about? Well, thank you very much. When I started my job, we sat down and we looked at all the different responsibilities which the chief military personnel. We put together an inclusion and diversity plan of action across the board to look at what we could improve. The Women's Health Initiative was one of those things. We also looked at infrastructure. We looked at equipment and a new contract was just awarded for equipment. And part of that contract involves better support for women's clothing, the boots they wear, for instance. Last year, we got a refund for leak-proof underwear and bras even. So we're talking about equipment, clothing that fits us. We're also looking at the bias in the system to make sure that every member has every opportunity at their disposal. And when we have succession interviews or meetings, we have a diversity officer to bring this perspective, and we have civilian employees talking with military personnel. They talk to each other to make sure that what we're saying makes sense. So when you talk about more women in the ranks and, for instance, breastfeeding for some members, a lot of changes have happened. A lot will still happen, but it's one step at a time, and we're going to get there. We will get there. You talked about the frequent moves, and I always thought that was really hard to understand. As you know, in the past, it was mostly men who had to move from place to place, and then the women often had to move along with the husband. If she was a teacher, and I used to be a teacher myself, and the women couldn't get a job at the new posting. And there was always a lack of jobs for the spouses, the women. And you referred to this in your presentation. So what can you tell us about that? Apart from moving less, we've just actually finished a study on employability of military personnel when they transition. So are you looking at that aspect more closely? Very good question, Mr. Chair. I know we don't have a lot of time left, so we're talking about Seamless Canada. Seamless Canada has a working group with the provinces and the territories. So we're all working together to see how we can make it easier for spouses to get jobs when the family has to move. When they get to another province, we want to make sure that their qualifications can be recognized because the spouse has to start anew. And that's why we are working with the provinces and territories, and we're slowly making progress. When it comes to immigration, our work with provinces is also going well. Thank you.
Mr. told me you were bang on. So you got 14 extra seconds next time. There you go. Maintenant, nous avons Monsieur.
Now, Mr. Luc Désilet for 6 minutes. Mr. Luc Désilet from the Bloc Québécois. Good evening, colleagues, and thank you to our guests. Ms. Bourgon, you represent a great balance between a woman of experience, a strong woman, and someone who is human, down to earth, a mensch, because when we listen to you, you're down to earth, you're funny, and that makes you very credible, at least in my eyes. Now, you put out a video on your past as a helicopter pilot. I think you flew Sea Kings. I watched it twice. The first time I didn't understand, and then I watched it again to make sure I really understood. And I think your background is really interesting, and I would encourage everyone to take a look because you explain everything in such simple, straightforward terms. However, once that video was made, are we to understand that we will never have to fight again for proper equipment for women based on their particular body types? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In fact, we're fighting that battle every day. Every time we buy new equipment, we have to do a gender-based analysis plus and really look at all the members involved. In the last 2 years, we built a database, an anthropomorphological database, and taking into account women's body types, their measurements, their height. So now we have a better idea of what kind of equipment we need. And that's part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is that we need to make sure that the industry can deliver what we're asking for. And some pieces of equipment are hard to adapt. If you look at the cockpit of an aircraft, the size of it, well, you can't really 100% meet the needs of every single Canadian sitting in that cockpit. So we need to figure that out. Difficult choices have to be made. And we also have ballistic plates where technology hasn't been developed yet because women represent a small percentage, or rather, Canada represents a small percentage of buyers worldwide for military equipment. So you're saying there still needs work to be done to properly adapt equipment to women. Yes, absolutely, but we're still working on it. We know it's a challenge, and we're hands-on in that regard. Now, if you could quantify it, what percentage of women have equipment that meets their physical needs? Well, it depends. Can you say 5, 10, 15%? Well, it depends on the occupation. As a pilot, getting into the cockpit, well, if you're a driver, if you're a fireman or a firewoman, really, it's just so specific to each position. Well, that's fine. Now, in your current position, are you intending to or rather, what do you expect to do for women, to implement for women over and above what you've already achieved? If you had a year left, what would you want to do? Well, again, I think you have to understand the needs of women, which are different from the needs of men. And you have to take a very specific analysis for each position. Canada is a gender traditional country, so women are often responsible for looking after the home and for raising kids. So the demands put on women are quite heavy. So how do you address that? Well, if I had a magic wand with my experience, what would I do? I would provide daycare for women service members, daycare for all the children of military personnel based on their needs. It should be there when they need it. We know that about 45% of military families find it hard to find daycare services for their children. So that's a huge challenge. I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. I don't have much time left. So that's really interesting, an interesting answer. Daycare. So what other priority issues would there be for you? Well, I think women's health. We've just launched an initiative to that effect, and it's really exciting to see what is going to happen. And I also think the equipment has to be adapted to women. So the health of women, daycare for their kids, and the equipment to make sure the women can be the best they can be to do the job they signed up for. If women don't have the right equipment, well, they can't do their best, and you'll get hurt. So those would be my three priorities. Thank you very much, Madame Bourgon. Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
Fourth round of questions in the first round of our questioning this evening. We have Ms. Rachel Blaney from the New Democratic Party. 6 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate your testimony and find it rather inspiring, some of the things that you were talking about earlier today. So thank you for your service, and thank you for giving us a little bit of hope, which is within a challenging study that we've been sitting through. So I'm going to come to you first, Lieutenant General Bourgon. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. One of the things that we have heard again and again from women service, from their history of service, is that they often felt invisible. And now in their experience in VAC, they're feeling similarly that issue, where they're trying to prove again and again that the things that happened to them while providing services had an impact. And because it wasn't being measured very well before, it's really hard to prove it on that other side. And I hear them really clearly and hear that concern, and that there's something we have to do. The other thing that I found really interesting about their testimony, though, is they've talked about the opportunity for women if provided the proper equipment and the acknowledgement of who they are when they serve. So it's sort of this interesting opportunity that comes from some severe struggle. And I really appreciate so many women veterans coming forward and sharing that experience. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the role that you are playing and what you have seen in the last few years that women veterans who have served our country could hear from you today that they may not be aware of, that those changes are happening and what that looks like.
And thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I hear your comments, and I hear the comments of the veterans women because I've lived it. I mean, that's the reason that I'm so enthusiastic with that inclusion. But you know, the CAF of today is not the CAF that I joined in 1987. We've done a lot of progress, and there's still a lot of progress to be made. But now we're aware of those progress, and we have, again, the GBA analysis that is mandatory on everything that we do, from policy to equipment to infrastructure. So there is a fail-safe that we need to address every time we want to do something. You know, we have GENAD, or Gender Advisor, in all of our commands that are there to advise. Chief Professional Culture is there to provide that expertise. So I don't think honestly, that women are invisible anymore in the Canadian military. That we are part of the CAF, the same as the different employment equity group, and we are taking our place and we're being supported. Is it perfect? No. Do we have improvement to do? Absolutely. But our voice is being heard. We have the Defense Advisory Organization. So when we look at Indigenous, visible minority, LGBTQ, and women, that we meet regularly at the tactical level on each of the base. There's a level across Canada where we hear them and we hear about the gaps, what they want us to change. And as much as we can, given resources, priorities, sequencing, and everything, we try to deliver on what they need. So I think we're here to hear and to change. I think that's the big difference that I would note from 35 years ago when I joined.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess my next question, and I've heard this as well, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it, is as things change in the CAF and as there's more clarity about the impacts, what needs to change so that those impacts are less disabling to women, how is that information shared with VAC? Because what I'm hearing again and again is that veteran women are coming forward and they're talking about the challenges that they have. They're talking about how they think, based on their medical records, the impact was from the service. I hear clearly that you're working collectively to say, yes, those things do impact, and how do we lessen the impact by changing what we're doing? How is that getting to VAC so that when they do the assessment, they actually know how to support those women veterans most effectively?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think I'll give the floor to General Bilodeau to talk about a bit the medical side. But one thing that we've just initiated is better understanding and a joint research between VAC and CAF to understand the needs of women, and from a medical side, but also from a physical and a psychological and bien-être, the wellness, that working together we can make progress. So I'll give you the floor, Marc, and maybe Dan might ask something about the transition services that are focusing on women.
So there's a steering committee between Veterans Affairs and us that is basically trying to align our services so that we reduce the gap between the two departments when a member transitions, because we serve the same community just at different time of their career, as you would imagine. So there's subcommittees to that steering committee, and one of them is about healthcare. How do we align the healthcare services we provide to our service members, and how do we make sure that the same level of services is available to our veterans after release? Obviously, there's a component of that belongs to the provinces, because our members then, once they leave, they become citizen and covered from a health services by the province, and then VAC is supplementing that care with whatever we provide that is kind of missing there. So our goal is to align as much as possible so that to minimize the gap, because we know that there was a significant gap several years ago, and slowly we're trying to better align our program so that this gap is as small as possible, I guess, or inexistent. I guess the goal would be to make it inexistent.
Okay, and that's the end of our first round. We'll move to our second round of questioning now, and we have a bit of a different order here. We'll have 5 minutes from each of the Conservative and Liberal parties, 2.5 minutes from the Bloc Québécois and then the NDP, and then finish the round with another 5 minutes from both the Conservative and the Liberal parties. So we'll move now to Ms. Kathy Wagenthal for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for being here this evening. Very much appreciated, and for your service as well. I have some concerns around the issue of sexual misconduct. It's disproportionately affecting women in the Canadian Armed Forces, and instances are on the rise within the Canadian Armed Forces. In the 2018 fiscal year, there were 256 cases reported, and that number has risen every single year. There were, in this last fiscal year, 444 cases reported. So in your most recent departmental plans, there isn't a determined goal to reduce cases, and it just says in that column, target to be determined. Could you expound on that just a little bit to explain what that means, because that seems very undetermined?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I can't really answer the question because it's more in a chief professional culture and conduct. However, I just want to point that increasing of sexual misconduct is different than what is being reported. And I think that saying that there's an increase is wrong. People are reporting, which is a good thing.
Right.
Okay? It's a good thing. So does that mean that there's more sexual misconduct? No. I can't say that. But the people are coming forward and they're reporting, which for me is a clear sign that we are doing something right. If people have the confidence to come forward and report so that we can take action.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because I think that is really important, that freedom to feel that you can come forward and not suffer any consequences for doing that. So that is powerful. Thank you very much. We've also, I have to ask this question, it's always on my mind. We're dealing with things somewhat, now there's this realization and movement, but how is it that women were brought into the military in the 80s, some time ago, and it seems there was no forethought to the fact that there would need to be significant adjustments made for their service, especially I'm thinking within the combat roles and whatnot. So are you aware of the past in that time frame, and if there was or what was predetermined to make that entry more less painful?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. And I mean, there's a long story of how women came to be accepted in the CAF. You know, from my research, it was not always welcome. You know, the military had to be told to take women into their ranks in all military occupation. So there was resistance, okay? I will be honest. There was resistance. So assimilation was more important than inclusion. And I think that's where we're seeing the difference now, that it's not about assimilation. I don't have to change who I am to belong. I can belong as who I am, a woman, a mother, etc. So that is the switch that we've done in, I would say, 2010, where inclusion is the key and not assimilation.
So when you began the system of identifying barriers, when the 4 that you mentioned here, when was that actually implemented? When did you say, okay, here are the things we've determined and we're going to move forward in this way? Was there
barriers?
You talked about your ID barriers, the four things that you look for in injury or illness, physical requirements. You named them off quite quickly.
Yeah, the 4 lines of effort.
Right.
Well, the 4 lines of effort on the Women Health Initiative was announced 2 years ago with the new Women's Health Initiative. So it's relatively recent, but we've budget 22, I think, if I go on my notes, sorry, but we approved, and of course my notes are not here. Anyway.
Recent.
It's about 2 years old. It's
Okay.
at $144 million over 5 years, 31 million ongoing. So this is, again, a big initiative. Yes.
Ask one more quick question. I have 20
Yes.
seconds. Thank you. That was very helpful. The women that have come to speak to us about the challenges they have faced, which are severe and significant, they talk about the gender-based analysis that was supposedly done, but no report has been provided.
We'll have to have that answer be quite quick because we are at the end of time.
There's no report that they can refer
But
to for the gender-based analysis.
can we extrapolate, on what report? Sorry.
The report that every department is required to do as a part of the government, gender-based analysis of your program, how it impacts women, gender, nothing.
Well, I know that everything that we submit now must have a gender-based analysis attached to it. So any policies, any new federal.
Is that available for people to see?
We'll have to
I'm
stop
sorry,
there.
Chair, yeah, right.
I
Okay, that's
can
fine.
appreciate it. If I was in your chair, I would be doing the exact same thing, but we can only let it go so far. So maybe you'll get another chance. But we'll move now to Mr. Cherence Rogers from the Liberal Party for the next 5 minutes. He's online, so Cherence, the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and as well, thanks to our witnesses for taking part in tonight's meeting and contributing to this very important study. And of course, I want to thank you for your service. One of the major themes that we've been hearing, this could go to any member on the panel, is the transition piece, moving from military to civilian life. And we've heard many witnesses talk about this and the challenges they had with that. So in order to make that more efficient and effective, maybe Lieutenant General Bergeron, maybe you can explain the transition process that CAF initiates and offers when serving members leave the military to enter civilian life. And if there are gaps, what are the gaps in the process that you still feel may need to be addressed to better position these vets for success post-service?
And thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is an excellent question. And to my left, I have Commodore Bouchard. It's his job to do transition. So, the CAF transition unit were born out of SSE in 2017. And it's a jewel because we recognize the service of our military and we facilitate their transition, because you can imagine after removing the uniform, after 35 years of service, it's like being naked, okay? And it's an adjustment. So the transition unit are doing fabulously, and I'll get Dan to go through the steps.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the question. Indeed, in 2018, the transition group stood up, and the initiative is to facilitate, because as was just mentioned, it's a very stressful moment in someone's life when you transition to the civilian. And we work closely with VAC to deliver on a personalized, professional, and standardized services, either it be in casualty support, for the transition services, for the members, but also the families. And we do that with a variety of partners that are co-located with us in our transition centers. I understand that you were briefed earlier in the sessions by Colonel Lisa Noonan, who touched a little bit on the transition centers and the services. But essentially, we oversee, a transition advisor is assigned to somebody who is transitioning now. And they make a transition plan over 7 domains of well-being, whether it be a sense of purpose, for their finance, for their health, social integration, their life skills, housing and the physical conditions, and the cultural and social environment. So it's a team approach to make sure that the veterans now, that the CAF members who are transitioning to veteran and civilian life will have a good plan to ensure that there are no gaps. Veterans Affairs Canada are embedded with us at our transition centers to facilitate that. I need to caveat that by July, 75% of our transition centers will be established. We expect to be at full operational capability by April of 2024 at this time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that information. From some of the previous witnesses, we've heard some pretty heart-wrenching stories in the initial stages of when women became members of the military in the first 10, 15, 20 years. So I ask you this question. What mechanisms do women have who may be experiencing abuse, harassment, or discrimination while in uniform have to ensure their voices and experiences are being heard and acted upon by superiors in a manner that is fair and compassionate to them? So again, any member of the committee that wants to jump in on that question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And that's a very valid question. And I think that, the stand-up of chief professional conduct and culture is really formalizing all the tools because there's multifaceted, okay? It's having trust in your chain of command. It's having trust in the justice. It's having trust in the military police investigating. There's a whole bunch of things that come into this and establishing that trust and the reporting, and then different mechanism. So, General Carignan would be the best one to talk about this, but again, there's not one solution because every victim, our needs are different, and we need to ensure that we allowed every individual to do something they're comfortable in doing. And if this is approaching like our chaplain, because they feel better like that, approaching their chain of command, approaching the medical side, approaching the military police, calling the sexual misconduct SMRSC, I'm getting confused, an acronym we've just changed. There's a multitude of ways to connect and to report. And that is, I think, what is a game changer because people are more comfortable. They have that trust that they will be listened to, that they will be believed, and that justice will take its toll. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, and that concludes that intervention. So thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the witnesses.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Maintenant, nous avons.
We'll now move to Mr. Luc Desilets for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Desilets, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question, I only have 2 minutes, so if you could answer briefly, Mr. Bouchard, that would be great. So you're the transition expert. What is your perception? How do you think the transition is happening? What is the actual experience of members when they're transitioning from the armed forces to civilian life? Well, thank you very much for the excellent question, but it's really individual. And so today, we sit down with the families, we meet people, and we have a transition officer who will help facilitate the process so members understand what's coming up. So there are 7 different areas which are focused on to ensure the well-being of a member when they transition, whether they transition completely to a new civilian life or into a new job. It's really a personalized approach. What are these 7 sectors you're talking about? Can you mention a few? And who does the assessment in these 7 sectors? Well, we're talking about housing or finances. If we're here in Ottawa and I want to retire in Lac-Saint-Jean, if I want to move there, well, the officer will help to develop a plan to make that possible. Thank you very much. Ms. Bourgon, a quick question. Do you have a message for women who are thinking of entering the armed forces because recruitment is not what it should be, not what anyone wants these days? So we are concerned. Are women afraid of the culture within the armed forces? Is that a reason why they're not signing up? Thank you for the question. I spend a lot of time selling the armed forces as an employer of choice. I had an incredible career. My daughter's at RMC Kingston. My son graduated 2 weeks ago. There are so many career opportunities, so we have to focus. We have to stop looking back, and we have to look towards the future. I think we've made a lot of changes. The armed forces today are not the same as the ones I entered back in 1987. They provide a lot more opportunities, and I think people have to turn off the negative and focus more on the positive because things have changed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2.5 minutes to Rachel Blaney from the NDP.
Well, thank you, Chair. Ms. Our Lieutenant General Burgon, I apologize for calling you Miss. I want to come back to you. So I just to follow up on the question that I asked last time, is there a way that women veterans could offer feedback on their lessons learned and to support sort of quality assurance? I'm just wondering, is there any way, because I hear very clearly about the steering committee and that there's a lot of work happening, and I appreciate that, and probably will ask you a question about that in a moment. But what are the ways that we're actually, or are there ways that women veterans can actually give feedback back to the CAF to say, this would have been helpful for me, this would have made my journey a lot better? I just think that is such an important essence, because they have lessons for us to learn from.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And that's a very good point. And I think we do stakeholder engagement. So maybe we have to be a little bit more diversified in our stakeholder engagement and give the voice to our veterans, our women veterans, to come back and say, this is my experience, so that we can listen to them and potentially share with them. Because when we look, and that's one thing that we forget, but our veterans are our best recruiters. Okay, because especially women and visible minority join the military based on advice from people they know. And it's not like they need a permission, but they like being told, you should apply to the CAF because you're going to have a great career. And the more we can enable our veterans to have that voice of really talk positive about their experience, the more we're going to recruit, and it's important. So that exchange of lessons learned, and maybe for us to share also what has changed in the last 5 or 10 years, so that they better understand, and maybe they can say, okay, I feel good because you've changed what happened to me. Now I'm not invisible anymore. And then they can be a positive voice. So I take that point, and we'll try to get more stakeholders and get veterans into our stakeholders engagement to get their feedback.
Well, I thank you, and I have like 10 seconds, so I don't have an opportunity, but I do think it is profoundly important, because I think that when you talked about it, that recruitment aspect, we know that it's getting harder and harder for the CAF to recruit, so we need to heal some of those wounds so that we can see that opportunity. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Thank you. And we will now move to Terry Dowdle for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to say what an excellent job you're doing tonight. Thank you.
That's not going to get you any extra time,
Okay.
but nice try.
We're hoping to get off next week. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your service and for being here on such a hot night to talk to us here and hopefully help with our study here. Before this committee, I was on national defense for quite some time, and I'm going to follow up, I guess, with Ms. Wagenthal's comments about we studied the sexual misconduct in the military, and it was certainly a tough story for everyone to talk about and to go through. But when I was looking at the numbers, I know you're saying that it's good that there's more reporting than what did earlier. But I just kind of curious as to how many, like you said also, like justice is taking its toll. Like out of those reports, how many? Like that's a lot of reported. How many actually happened? Is there an increase in justifiable cases?
And again, this is not my field of expertise in military personnel command. Chief Professional Conduct and Culture is more the agency that is tracking that. So I wouldn't be able to answer your question, sir.
Okay, so then I sort of a follow-up, I guess to that is if there's more being reported, we're having a problem with the offenders, not so much with the victims. What is the CAF doing to get that message out, I guess, to those that perhaps aren't taking it seriously enough? And what did we learn from that moment? We studied for quite some time. I don't know out of the study what's actually been implemented. I don't know if you could give me an idea of what new things have been implemented to change that, so the offenders know exactly their role, their responsibility, and what it means.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So when we look at sexual misconduct, many causes, but, again, it's looking at the environment, the training, the education, the support that we provide. we've put into place a lot of initiatives, especially like during the training, during education, throughout our career, at specific point, that culture evolution, that what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. We've just released our new ethos, Trust Us to Serve, which clearly established what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Inclusion as characteristic. So it's not one little answer, but it's across the spectrum of that culture evolution and that behavior that it's not acceptable. And I think that we're seeing a difference on the ground because people better understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Now, the reporting piece, again, for me, and I know that, I don't want to see more, but I feel a little bit confident that if the people are confident in coming forward, that's a good sign. Now, we will work on our numbers, and I think as we look in the future, we will see those numbers decrease. My expectation is that they will start to decrease because people understand, and clearly we are dealing with every situation that is reported. So there are clear action taken on cases. So you can't get away with it anymore. Like, that is absolutely unacceptable. So that's good. That's positive change.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope that we are getting better, but certainly I can tell you that I'm a father of 2 daughters. I think that was a big moment that when people were trying to recruit more people, I think it's a real spot that we have to work on, and as much with the offenders almost as the victims, to know how serious it is and what it means to their career. And I don't know if that's being reminded enough, because certainly the numbers are going up would be my comment. So. Yes.
And as a mother myself, that's like I said, my daughter joined the military. If I was any doubt about her safety, I would not have encouraged her to join the military. So I feel confident that we're making great progress.
Okay. And do I have any time?
Got about 15 seconds.
15. Okay. I'll cede it to my next round. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Dowdell. And we'll now turn to Rechi Valdez for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for joining, and I do appreciate everything you've done for our country and all your sacrifice. And I appreciate the perspective you brought, which is this very look forward, very hopeful message, and I really do appreciate it. I'll start directing my questions to you, Lieutenant Bourgeon, and then feel free to redirect if needed. What I've been curious about, specifically around the adjustments we're making to uniform or equipment for women, I just want to have reassurance that as we're making those adjustments, it's still going to be less abrasive for their bodies, but then also not compromising on their safety. So if you can kind of touch on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That's absolutely vital. Women need to be able to do their job. They need to be safe in doing their job and protected and being enabled to be all they can be. I always go back and say we ask women to deploy in the field with boots that did not fit their feet, with rucksack that were way too big. How can you be the best that you can be if the equipment is designed for a 6-foot man? Okay, it's hard enough. Like, we have to be honest. Physically, we are at a disadvantage against some men. So if we're put at a disadvantage additionally because of the poor equipment that we have, how can we be equal or even as good or even better than men? So it's super important that we have the right equipment to protect our women.
Thank you, Chair. We heard from past witnesses, women veterans, issues like lack of gender-specific healthcare facilities, the lack of mental health support, military trauma, and it makes it difficult for women vets to have access to that health support. Now, earlier in your opening, you mentioned your focus on improving health care. So can you share what adaptations that you've made to help vets in this space?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, we're looking at measures to help serving member. That's the CAF mandate. And from a health perspective, I guess I'll give the floor to Marc, who can talk about specifically what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's a lot to do. And we don't have all the data yet to determine what needs to be done because we lack research. And it's not unique to the military. There's a lack of research about women's health in society overall. Most of the research in medicine have been designed with male populations, and obviously it's not always possible to extrapolate to women regarding the impact. And we have good example of that for cardiac disease, for example. It's definitely not designed for women. So we need to start there. We need to have a better database to monitor research. We're partnering with many organizations in order to do that research, including the Canadian Military Institute of Military and Veterans Health Research. So 43 Canadian universities that are part of that grouping that are helping us to figure out what needs to be done from a research perspective. That will subsequently inform prevention, what we need to do for prevention to reduce injuries, reduce illness for our military women, but also what we need to do better from a care perspective. We're following the Canadian guidelines for treatment of women, so I think we're aligned from that perspective. But what's unique to the uniform women, that we don't know for sure. We have a bit of research from partners, international partners on that, and we're trying to import, I guess, that expertise that is out there. But there's definitely more to do in order to better inform the progress. Our program, our women's health program, is just starting. It started last year, so we're now staffing a team. We're hiring people. And then subsequently, we're going to start investing more in research, subsequently healthcare, and hopefully improve health outcome for our military women.
And I'm just going to add, in case anyone is interested, there's an incredible book out there. It's by Carolyn Perez, and it's called Invisible Women. And it's about, the world that was designed by men for men and how women are invisible in society. And the CAF in the military is the same. So it's a very interesting book in case you're looking for summer reading at the beach.
I just so happen to be looking for a book, so I appreciate the referral. And I don't have much time, so I'll just say thank you again for your service. And I just want to say a shout out to the witnesses who are witnessing the witnesses who are joined, who have also served. Thank you so much.
Merci. Je pense que nous avons le temps.
I think we have time for 2 more rounds like we did the first time. So for the third turn,
So we will pass that to Ms. Wagenthal for the next 5 minutes. I'm sure we have lots of volunteers, but Ms. Wagenthal had her hand up first, so we'll go to her for 5 minutes.
All right. Now I've lost what I had up on my phone here, but...
You want my question?
No. Not effective. Okay, well, I'll go another route. Thank you very much. General Bilodeau, this is for you. Somalia came up in conversation tonight, and this committee did meet with individuals who experienced the challenges of being administered mefloquine while they were there. And then we did another major study on that issue. And, I was thinking about it. We've had no feedback from women in the military, and this drug has been used right up and through Afghanistan and is now a drug of last resort. However, it was made clear in the report that this did not impact civilian use. And I lost a friend who was a considerable, amazing veterans advocate who had taken it with her husband on a trip to Thailand. So, and she eventually did take her own life. So every other country, UK, Germany, Ireland, Australia, US, has identified this as a concern as a brainstem injury and is treating specifically for that. And yet we do not have that in Canada. There's no recognition of the results of that particular drug. And I know part of it in the inquiry was to do around a number of other things, but then the inquiry was shut down before mefloquine was approached. So are you aware of women who were administered mefloquine when serving, and is there any feedback at all as far as its impact on them?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So, there are women who took mefloquine during their career for sure. I don't have the specific data on women specifically, And we have many of our men in uniform, obviously, who took mefloquine as well. There was a significant large study that was done for our military members about mefloquine several years ago, a study that was reported to my predecessor, the Surgeon General, informing, I guess, what needed to be done from that perspective. Obviously, that study was aligned with evidence in the research community, both Canadian evidence but international evidence as well, because there's been many research activities all around the world on mefloquine. And based on that evidence, a recommendation was made to basically put mefloquine as a last resort choice, as you mentioned, because of some potential impact of mefloquine on the brain. This hasn't been officially proven. You know, there's still a lot of debate in the scientific community about that. But by prudence, we've decided to basically make it as a last resort. Why it's still on the formulary? It's because for some people, it's well tolerated, and they've done well with it. And the beauty of the mefloquine is you take it once a week instead of every day. So the compliance is way better, obviously. So having said that, we'll keep monitoring this cohort, the members who took mefloquine over their career, and were
aware of everyone who would be on that list of individuals who were administered mefloquine during their service?
So, sorry, what's your question?
So you're aware then of everyone who was administered mefloquine during their service? You have that list of individuals if you're monitoring?
It is in their health records.
It's in their health records?
Yes, because it was prescribed to them.
Yes.
So, and we monitor everything we do in healthcare, obviously.
Okay. I'm just a little confused because I do follow with Dr. Nevin and Quinism in the States and the research that has been done in these other countries, and we don't seem to be in line with them on that issue. So it's just, it's come to my heart and mind today because we have studied this, I think before were you there? Yeah, and it was very significant. But I appreciate the feedback and do hope that those who need assistance will eventually get that identified as a need within our Veterans Affairs community. So I guess the other thing that I would like to refer to is that gender-based analysis, and it was specific to one area, and I don't have it on my phone. I don't know what I did with it. Can you pull it up for me again? What I would like to do is provide it to you, and then if you could follow up, it's got specific, it was a motion that was brought to the floor here that we want to get the information that was found out in that analysis so that we can assist those who have struggled with a clearer picture of what has been determined through the study, because it doesn't seem to be available to those who've served to see what the results were to that particular analysis.
So what we'll maybe have to do, Mrs. Wagenthal, is just have pass that when you find it to one of your colleagues, and because your round is up. So you can pass it along to one of your colleagues and ask them to share the information and check with the witnesses if you'd like. We'll move now to Sean Casey for the 5-minute round.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Tuka into the conversation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So you're the National Practice Leader for Psychiatry for the Canadian Armed Forces. That's the correct title?
Yes.
We have heard an awful lot of very powerful testimony during the course of this study from people who, after having served, had a long course of PTSD, depression, and many other psychological conditions. And we heard today about Seamless Canada, something that facilitates the transition from the military medical system to the civilian one. So I'm particularly interested in your area of expertise and anything that you can tell us about what you need, what women veterans need, specifically in your field of expertise, to be able to continue to have a reasonable standard of care. I expect you're going to tell me that the standard of care in the military is top-notch. Why don't we start with that? Let's talk about the level of care in the military, the level of care in civilian society, and that in-between step from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just would like to acknowledge that I am situated in Vancouver on the unceded traditional territories of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So to answer your question, thank you. You started it that, yes, in the Canadian Armed Forces, we do have a robust mental health care, mental health services, mental health programs available everyone. I can go into details, but what I would like to emphasize is that, yes, we follow evidence-based care for every mental health condition, every psychiatric, psychological condition, including PTSD. And also, I would like to mention how you started it that people with PTSD very, very frequently have comorbid conditions, which means that they have not just PTSD, but they do have anxiety disorder. They can have depression, and some of them have, unfortunately, substance use disorder as well. So we are dealing with usually complex clinical pictures for those individuals who, unfortunately, cannot continue their military service, and they will be released from the military. So we encourage people, including women, to seek help early as possible, because research shows that early intervention has a way better outcome. So we treat people with evidence-based treatment modalities in a multidisciplinary care, with a multidisciplinary team with psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, addiction counselors, even mental health chaplains. So our patients, our members get comprehensive care when they get ill. And when we realize, or the realization came up that unfortunately the member cannot continue their service and they will be released on medical basis, quite early we start the transition process, what you've heard about. As soon as members get permanent employment limitations, which are not compatible with continued military service, at that point, they got connected with a nurse case manager who will walk them through the transition process. Us as clinicians, our responsibility is to work closely with the primary care clinician and the nurse care case manager is to establish a follow-up care for those members by the time they release from the military. We try to do it as early as possible. We see that how comfortable our members are with the new providers in the community. We try to ensure by the day they leave, they already have the appointments set up with the psychiatrist, with the psychologist or social worker or whoever needs them. So this is what we can do. Many of the psychologists who are treating our members in the community, they are not just Blue Cross provider, not just providers for the Canadian Armed Forces, but providers for the Veteran Affairs of Canada as well. So the transition is quite smooth. Probably you've heard about the Operation
Sorry to
Stress
interrupt
Injury
you, Lieutenant
Network.
Colonel. If you can just try and wrap up your response. We're quite a bit over time with this round, so if you but finish up your thought
thank you, Mr.
quickly.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to mention the Operation Stress Injury Network, which is also a similar multidisciplinary team, what we do have in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Merci. Maintenant,
we will now move to Mr. Luc Desilets for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize that we have 3 senior officials from Quebec in Ottawa tonight. I'm impressed. And it's really nice to see that. So my question is for Mr. Bouchard. Ms. Touka, I like you a lot. But my question is for you, Mr. Bouchard. You are an expert in transitions. So we've heard about problems with this transition. So you're going from the military life to civilian life. And medical care has a disconnect. And for the last 3 years, I've hoped that we can sort of build a bridge. And in my craziest dreams, I see the doctor who was following a member. This doctor would continue to follow the member for the transition for 1 year. Is that possible? Madame Bourgon, I don't want you to answer this time. Mr. Bilodeau, you go ahead. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. I think General Bilodeau is best placed to answer that question. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Indeed, the medical transition is a challenge. There's no doubt about that. The transfer of information is also a challenge because we have to negotiate, if I can use that word, the transition with 10 provinces and 3 territories. And no one has any electronic records except for Alberta and Nova Scotia. So it's almost impossible to transition electronically because everyone has their own system. So we do it electronically, but with the member. The member will have a USB key, so the information is there, but it's not as fluid or seamless as it could be. I was at the Veterans Affairs Tribunal, and it's just crazy to see the veterans who are just sent home. They have a copy of an X-ray, which isn't adequate anymore, and I don't understand how in 2023, I like you a lot, but I can't accept your answer. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, but we are investing a lot to build a team to help us transfer these records because clearly we're lagging behind. So we have a full-time team who makes the imaging available so that it can be read in civilian systems. But again, the problem is it's a hybrid transition because some organizations use e-images, others use old-style images, and the files, some are electronic, some are paper files. Ms. Bourgon started 36 years ago. She's got a paper file, and today the files are digital. So the transition will last as long as all of these, as long as we have members who still have paper files. So it still is a challenge. Well, thank you. Yes, it's an urgent situation for a lot of veterans. Mr. Chair, I'd like to add that I am a Franco-Ontarian.
Francophone.
Francophone, still a Francophone.
J'irai pas aussi loin que ça.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, now that we all know where we all are, we'll go to Ms. Blaney for 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair. Good luck in keeping this group under order. So this is interesting, and I'll just place it to whoever's the best to answer it. I let you guys be the experts as always. But when members transition from military to civilian healthcare, what I'm wondering is who's in charge, or is anyone in charge, of educating the healthcare system that is receiving them on the cultural and military awareness? It seems like it's a very specific reality. And I think it's in the United States where healthcare just is seamless between, the CAF or the service and then when you become a veteran. And so I'm just wondering, is anyone in charge of it? Is that a gap? And is there a place that would be best served to do that role?
Mr. President, yes, this is still a gap that is slowly closing, though, I would argue. First, we need to realize that there's a majority of our members that are releasing in areas where there are lots of members releasing, because usually they live nearby a base or wing. And the community gets familiar with our members as a result of that, because they see more of our veterans, I guess, in those locations. That's not the case, obviously, if a member decides to release remotely, and that's where we have challenges. In order to address those challenges, we've recently worked with Veterans Affairs and the College of Family Physicians of Canada to develop a guide, a best advice guide, that's how they call it, where they help family doctors in the community to understand better what it is to be a veteran, what our military members are going through during their career, what type of stressors they are exposed to, what type of conditions they develop as a result of those stressors, and how to best take care of them. But also what are the resources available to them after release. And that goes for the different support and healthcare resources that are available. Therefore, family doctors out there are able to make sure that the members are offered, the veterans are offered the best support possible where they are in the country. Are there still gaps? Of course, there are still gaps, but I believe we're moving towards an improvement, I guess. And my colleague in Veterans Affairs is definitely making a lot of efforts trying to address that.
So is there a feedback loop? What I mean by that are veterans and women veterans reviewing this advice and then giving feedback to see if it actually is effective in its delivery.
It was done in consultation with... Sorry, Mr. President.
I just asked for the response to be quite brief.
So it was done in consultation with former members. So some veterans were involved in the consultation on building that document. And feedback will be collected through surveys like Veterans Affairs do on a regular basis to seek the feedback and see if there is an improvement to make.
Thank you. And we will now move for 5 minutes to Mr. Fraser Tolmie, who is actually in the room and ready to go here.
Forgive me, Chair, I was getting my hair fixed there. We have spent numerous meetings speaking with vets, and when they go to Veterans Affairs, they're being evaluated on their hearing, their knees, their hips, their back. When we interview female veterans, they talk about the equipment, and Lieutenant General, you did speak about the integration and assimilation and the differences. What struck me tonight when we were sitting here is a lot of veterans, when they leave, are afraid to ask for help because they've been part of units, they've been independent, and the challenges that they're facing are PTSD, things that we don't see. And I'm wondering, has there been a change in the medical release to include a psychiatric or mental evaluation?
Well, first of all, before I give the floor to General Bilodeau, I think we need to look at the transition support that we provide now, like the formalized support throughout the transition that we didn't used to have. You were military one day, the next day you returned your ID and the commissioner escorted you to the door. It was thank you to your service, and that's it. This is gone. Now we're looking at weeks or months to accompany someone through their transition and making sure that they have to show up in a brick building, talk to different people, and have that chance to talk about their issues. Because it's an environment where we listen, there's no judgment, and there's sharing and support being provided. So the opportunities to come forward are there. Now I'll give the floor to Marc, and then after that I think Dan wants to add something.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think you're referring to members that have not already been identified as having health issues when they release. So we have a process where we do a medical assessment for each of our members before they release. So that's part of the administrative process. And that gives us an opportunity to look if there is anything that has been unaddressed from a health perspective with those members. Obviously, physical and mental health issues are being looked at. There's sub-questionnaires, and that allows us to provide the care they need. And I'll ask my colleague to comment from a transition perspective.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to add, we also have a partnership program entitled the Operational Stress Injury Social Support Program, which supports, it's a group peer support provided by coordinators and volunteers, 70 coordinators, 70 volunteers with lived experience. They can do so virtually or in person. That group, they're introduced in the transition process, in the release process, so they make these connections and then they can partake in them. There's approximately 2,000 peers monthly that participate in these services. 20% of them are serving members, and another 80% will be veterans. And we're encouraging their participation and increasing the communications. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I want you to know that from our perspective, the person that's served and the person that's a vet is the same person. And what we've seen is that there's been an area of responsibility where there's a challenge where the military says, well, that's not our problem anymore. And, Veterans Affairs says, well, this happened here. And we need to address the person, not these two institutions. We have to have alignment, and that's what we're looking for. So I thank you very much for your questions, or for your answers, pardon me.
Okay, thank you. And we will now move for the next 5 minutes to Mr. Wilson Miao.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. It's very important for getting your input into our important studies. One question I have through the chair is regarding on a program that we currently have, which is the MyVac account online. Is there an increase of usage towards current members to apply, and even veterans to apply for an account through MyVac account?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if Dan can answer this because this is more of a VAC targeted question, but we'll give him the floor.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I do not have the statistics per se on the uptake or the applications, but through the transition process now, it is part of the services we offer, and we make the members aware. We strongly encourage them for everyone to actually enroll in a MyVac account.
And is this usually shared with them early stage when they join in CAF? Because from my understanding, having an account is enable current member to also update their medical record and input that record, existing record in place, instead of waiting until the transition period starts. So can you share your thoughts on that?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed, it is part of our outreach programs as we discuss at the various training, education courses. It's also part of our outreach program where the chain of command of the transition centers will proceed and provide that awareness in their local regions to make sure and encourage people to register early. Indeed.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think I'm the last one in the list. Is there any other recommendations or any comments you would like to include in our studies that you can share with the committee?
Sorry, I'm going to have to call. Can you repeat that question?
Basically,
and I'm not contagious, by the way. I've been tested like about 12 times. It's une laryngite. No? It makes me cough. I tried the pressure point, in case you're wondering what I'm doing. It's just stopped me, and the tap. Anyway, so just so that you are aware, I am not contagious.
No problem. Well, basically, I want to ask if there's any other things you would like to share that can be included part of our studies. Maybe each of you can take a turn and share with us things that we haven't included in our conversation this time and would like to add to our report study.
I'd like to highlight the excellent collaboration that is currently happening between us and our colleague for Veterans Affairs. From a health perspective, I speak to my colleague, who is the chief medical officer for veterans, who is a former military member, by the way, on a monthly basis at least. And we're sharing challenges. She's seeing things on her side, obviously, that are very critical for us, specifically for women's health, because she's seen some trends on her side that allows us to address those issues and trying to prevent, I guess, for women to suffer after release by preventing injuries and diseases while they're serving. So I would say that this is, to me, this is a game changer from my perspective, because it wasn't like that 10 years ago, for sure.
And
well, thank you very much. And I'm just going to elaborate. You know, when we look at veterans, and for me, my mission is to ensure that we don't break women. Okay, we want them to have a very long career where they contribute and they feel safe. Those are the changes that we're doing. But we look on the stats today, and I did a deep dive. 47% of our women are retiring from the military released because of a medical issue. So this is a huge concern for me that we need to do better. From first is understanding of why, and then putting gaps into, like putting really initiatives and closing the gaps so that we don't hurt our women. And it's super important. And again, the question about equipment, the question about procedures, how we train, and having the right procedures and the right services in place for women, so that we don't see those stats. Because again, when we look at the stats for men, about 30% released medically. So the fact that it's 47 for women is an issue that we need to target so that we can change that.
Thank you. And do I have
That's
some more time?
your time is
Thank
up.
you very much.
So that's fine. I was going to move us into a full fourth round. I sense that maybe the committee might find it more useful if we were to just kind of maybe take a little bit of a speakers list for anyone who's kind of got one or two last questions. If that, and we'll use up the rest of the time. Maybe I misread the room. So we got lots of hands up. So we'll just go back to the order then, and we will go with 5 minutes for the fourth round in the first couple, and it will go with Mr. Terry Dowdle for the next 5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, but I'm willing to pass it over. There's no I in team. I'm going to pass. Kathy had it last time, so I'm happy to pass it back to Kathy, though I would love to give it to either one of you as well.
Seems as though you had lots of volunteers, but we'll get everyone an opportunity. So we'll go to Mrs. Wagenthal for 5 minutes here.
All right, you got to buy me supper, buddy. So,
you buy me something.
Yeah, no, okay. I think what I want to hear when we finish this whole report is everything that's happening to improve the quality of women's lives while serving, and then to have that quality still there when they do either retire or choose to leave, or in some cases, obviously, medically leave. So on that, the basis, what are the things that you see right now that I hear are being done, that weren't being done initially, that are going to make that significant difference in the lives of women that are choosing to sign up? And we know that, I mean, there's the same situation, I believe, with women as with the men. You know, we hear from those that are significantly injured. And I don't understand sometimes why it takes so much to take care of that cohort when there are literally hundreds of thousands of others that are doing just fine. So we should be doing everything we can. So what are the things that you see, very honestly, that we are going to be making more and more progress on and make life better for those that are choosing to join?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it goes back to my point that we've changed from assimilation to inclusion. And I could probably talk for days about what we're doing about inclusion. I did my fellowship and I did all the research on things that we need to change to really look at, the differences and not look at the strengths and weaknesses. They're just differences. And how do we recognize those differences? And how do we ensure that we have programs to provide opportunities that are they're not the same, they're different, but they need to be provided. So that is really what we're changing. And I guess it's across the spectrum from everything that we've talked about tonight. So again, maybe it's many things that we're putting into place that will make a difference. But it's a change in mentality that I don't have to change who I am to be the person and serving in the military. And that's a big step. And that is a huge step, actually, for all of us that are at our diversity and employment equity group.
Thank you. I have 2 minutes. Okay. I'd just like to read into the record the motion that I was speaking to earlier, and if you're able to assist with getting this information available, because it was very important to the women that have testified, that the Department of Veterans Affairs provide the committee with any results, findings, conclusions, and recommendations related to the sex and gender-based analysis of disability benefits adjudication research conducted by Dr. Barbara Clow. And then we amended it by adding the following: Barbara Clow reports, and these are those, completed while she was on contract with VAC, the description of disability adjudication at VAC on September 13th, 2019, that report, findings from the key information consultations, October 1, 2019, analysis of adjudication instruments and process, 20th of December 2019, the evolution of the adjudication tools and rules at VAC, December 20, 2019, and the sex and gender-based analysis of disability benefits adjudication at Veterans Affairs Canada, summary report, February 11th, 2020. So these are reports that were written 2019, 2020, and somehow they don't seem accessible to these women.
So just before you respond, I'll just clarify. This is a motion that has been moved in this committee. The amendment that was read as well was moved. It has not been passed by this committee, but it is something that obviously the committee is discussing and has heard about. So I think that's why the question, and I would welcome an answer if you have one.
Well, thank you very much. I don't think you're going to like my answer, but all of those reports are Veterans Affairs reports. So they're not ours. So you will have to ask Veterans Affairs for those reports.
As I was reading down the list, I'm looking at you all and going, oh, I think I know the answer to my question. Thank you so much. But I do appreciate all the work that you have done, Ms. Bourgon, to be so very reassuring in what you have studied and researched and are now doing on behalf of the women serving. Thank you. And both the men as well.
Thank you very much. Oh.
All of you.
Okay. Thank you. And we will now move for 5 minutes to Daryl Sanson.
Give it to me. Go ahead.
Oh, so we're going to have a change there. Mr. Sean Casey will take this round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm actually just going to pose one question and then share my time with Ms. Valdez. Lieutenant Colonel Bourgon, earlier in the meeting, in response to a question from Mr. Desilets, if I understood correctly, you said that probably the biggest and best thing that we could do for serving female members is childcare. Did I understand you correctly?
Well, for personally, for me, talking to women, one of the biggest gap remaining is the access to childcare. Because as we move from province to province, we end up on a waiting list. And we don't have the luxury of waiting for 2 years to get a spot, because 2 years later we're posted again. So it has a huge impact on serving members, the uncertainty of getting access to childcare when they move. It's not about the cost of childcare, of course. I mean, the less is great, but it's not the cost. It's the availability of childcare, but also the availability of childcare to support our needs. We don't work 7 to 4. We work 24/7 on weekends and on call. So having secure access to childcare is very, very important. I mean, again, I go back to my story as a maritime helicopter pilot flying Seeking in Shearwater. My husband was deployed. I had to land Seeking in the parking lot in an emergency. Well, it was like 5:45, and daycare was closing at 6. Who could pick up the children? You know, and those are the stressors that honestly we don't need. There's enough stressors in the military that having access to childcare is not one of them. So my wish would be for a better childcare access for all of CAF members, women and men.
Thank you. Ms. Valdez?
You've got about 3 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Chair. Lieutenant Bergen, you mentioned that you don't want to hurt women. So what I'm curious about is how are you assisting women or trying to assist them without re-traumatizing them? Because a lot of witnesses, even just sharing their testimony, you can see what they have to go through to just like open up. So if you can share some insight there.
Mr. President, I can start by saying that, we're providing training to our healthcare providers from trauma-informed care approach and how to do that in a safe manner, in a welcoming manner, in a respectful manner. So I think that training is a good step for us to make our care more accessible to our women. And I might ask Lieutenant Colonel Tuka to add to that from a mental health perspective. Andrea?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you very much, sir. A couple of other things that I would like to add. Our psychologists, for example, in the Canadian Armed Forces Mental Health Services, have at least one evidence-based trauma-focused treatment modality what they can use to treat people. Also, we provided a webinar for the entire health services about a year ago, focusing on military sexual trauma. What does it mean? Where are the resources? And also we included trauma-informed care with that. Also, we do have opportunities to attend different continuing educational events, and we bring those events to the clinics as well, so everyone can get those new training opportunities. So we would like to get our clinicians to up to date for the newest and most up to date evidence-based treatments.
Thank you. And really quick, how can we address some of the stigma of women vets seeking mental health services? Squeezing that in.
Yes, Mr. President. So, stigma is still an issue, not only for women, for men as well. I think we've made a lot of progress over the last few decades to reduce those stigma by having senior leaders coming out and sharing with the rest of the CAF members what they've been through, the fact that they reach out for care, and the fact that they were able to recover as a result of that. And again, we're trying to focus on early intervention, early consultation, because we know that prognosis is better for that, and we're likely to keep members in uniform instead of having to release them if they do so.
Thank you.
Merci. Pour la prochaine 2 minutes et demie, nous avons Mr.
Thank you. And now for 2.5 minutes, Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Tomei, I really enjoyed your question. For once, it was really good, really relevant. I'm kidding. I always like to see your reaction. No, it was really good because, no, I don't want to be ironic, but I am feeling a little jokey tonight. In any case, I was surprised to hear you say, Mr. Bilodeau, that there was excellent collaboration between the armed forces and Veterans Affairs, because we haven't heard that at all here. Not at all. Absolutely not, I swear. And I've been at this committee for 3.5 years now. It's not because of you, and it's not because of any of you, but really the transfer really is not happening well. The transition is not happening well. You're on the ground, but the soldier, the member who's a full-fledged individual, who's a human being, overnight, as soon as he or she leaves, his or her status changes completely. His or her situation changes completely, and I'm getting my skin is beginning to crawl a little bit because you're all going to go through this, and that bothers me because there is no adequate transition. And the heart of the problem when you talk about the transition is right there. And I know that you're doing what you can on your side. Veterans Affairs are doing what they can on their side, but there's a disconnect. There's a divorce, if you will, between the two, and that really concerns me because for years we've heard witnesses tell us about all the problems that they encounter. Mr. Bilodeau, you said there's an excellent cooperation. I don't see it. I don't feel it. And I know that you don't have all the powers, but if you could just help transition the files. In an ideal world, there would be one doctor with the armed forces who for a few months could stay with the new veteran, and the file would go with the veteran, and this medical professional would help the member. Do I have time left? Yes. So why can't we do that, Mr. Bilodeau? Well, you've asked your question, and we'll ask for a brief answer. I'm sorry for going on, but I really care about this, Bilodeau. What can you do here on the medical front? Well, Mr. Chair, there's a distinction between the cooperation we have with Veterans Affairs and the experience of the transition. Those are two different things. The experience of transition is a major stressor for many of our members. We can't deny that because your identity is that of a member of the Canadian Armed Forces, and when you lose that, it's a shock to the system. And if you look at it from the other side, for instance, a family physician will take over a member before the member is discharged, before the member starts a transition. I don't have the authority to look after a member after that member has left. So we try to bring on board a GP, if we can find one, before the member leaves. And this doctor will help with the transition. If I may, Mr. Chair, just a brief question. Or rather, I would like to add something. We're also working with people on an individual basis and with healthcare experts. So if there are issues, we let them stay a little longer with the armed forces. So we are working hand in hand with these experts. Thank you.
2.5 minutes, Rachel Blaney.
Are you sure it's 2.5 minutes? I think
Well,
he got a little bit more than that.
He did get away with it there. The chair was
He got
very
away with it.
generous.
The chair was very lenient.
I won't cut it into your time with it, though, I promise. So.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say that I do believe things are getting better. I represent the 19 wing, and right across the street there's the transition center. I've done tours of both places, and I do see that there's a lot of work being done, and I think it's important we acknowledge that. But I think it's also important that we acknowledge that we still have a ways to go and that we're working hard, but we still have a ways to go. So if I can come back to you, Major General, I'm just trying, you answered my last question, but I just want to ask a little bit of clarity. So who is in charge of that training? Like you talked about a medical booklet, I'm assuming who is in charge? That's one. The second part of that question is that you said that there's a survey, but those booklets would be going to healthcare professionals. So how are you surveying veterans and women veterans on feedback on that? I'm just wondering because I'm not clear on the process. And what I really want to understand is if veterans are included in this. Because if they are not, I just think it's important we recognize that so that that's something we can talk about in the future.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm not aware of any training specifically. I'm aware of a document that was shared with family doctors And this was developed by Veterans Affairs with the College of Family Physicians, with our support, the support of a transition group as well. The survey is not specific to that. Veterans Affairs are doing regular surveys of their veterans. One of the examples is what was released several years ago, the Life After Service Survey, that highlighted many of the challenges that our veterans have from a health perspective after a transition, for example, which allowed us to focus a bit of our efforts there. So I suspect that through those surveys, veterans will be able to monitor if access to family doctors that understand their need is better or not. But I'm not aware of the specifics of how they're going to assess that, though.
Okay, that's helpful. So now we know that that's just not happening, and it might be something we want to explore in the future. That was extremely helpful. If I can come to you, Commodore, one of the things that I'm asking for clarity is you didn't mention anything about transition services for MST. Is there transition services for MST?
And that'll be the final question for this round,
Thank
but I'll give you time to respond, of course.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So specific transition services for MST, it's more a personalized transition service with the individual. Therefore, if there are specific requirements, specific needs, they can be tailored. If there is also if they are releasing in an injured manner, like a medical release, they also have a service coordinator that facilitates that transition piece with them and make them aware of all the services that are available.
And I just want to add that the SMRSC is the acronym that is the expert on that MST support and their support and I know that they a bit too similar to OSIS with the support team and that is restorative engagement and also their team working with victims of MST to try to get better.
Okay, thank you. And we've got just enough time, I think, for the last two rounds that we have left. For about a 4-minute round each for the Conservatives and the Liberals. So we'll go 4 minutes for Mr. Fraser-Tolmie.
Thank you, Chair. When I was serving with the military, we went through, and forgive me if I've got the wrong acronym, but was it SHAPE training? SHARP. Okay, SHARP training. Well, obviously I wasn't sharp. And so now, in our conversations tonight, you talked about assimilation and inclusion. Has SHARP training changed to accommodate this new way forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a very good question. And
Thank
if you remember the SHARP training, it was one day when everyone focused and honestly, it was a bit, as a woman, it was very, because I was the cause. I was on a squadron full of men, and then they turned over to me and they said, we're here because of you. So not really the right spot to be. So SHARP training has been replaced. Now we're doing training and education throughout someone's career. Okay, when they join the military, they need to sign a piece of paper saying these are the values of the CAF. These are the behaviors that we expect. These are the behaviors that we don't tolerate. So right from the get-go, but also when they arrive in Saint-Jean, the same thing. And throughout each step of someone's training and education, we add a tiny little bit because we all change, and it has to be tailored to the level of individual throughout their entire career. So it's no longer that mandatory one-day training or that 1 hour training that you could have lived through in the past. It's embedded into everything we're doing.
Okay, and I'll be very upfront and honest with you. I thought it was great training. I actually, not that I looked forward to doing it, but it was, it was something that I thought, wow, this is going to be beneficial, and I've always used it and gone back to it. I mean, we go through similar training as members of Parliament, but I just wanted to know that. So it's not just one day. What is the criteria? What is the the course like now? Is it 2 days? Is it ongoing? Could you share that?
I mean, the answer is it depends. At which level are we seeing this? And it's a lot more about vignette and discussion versus PowerPoint presentation and saying you shall do this and you will not do this. This is a discussion on group base. We also have a great app that we just launched about ethos, and where we put our people in different situation and they can decide which CAF values applies into which circumstances, and then we can discuss as a group, and instructors can educate and all things. So it's more of a daily living event of learning and growing together versus a mandatory 1 hour PowerPoint presentation that you got on a Friday of a bad weather day. This is into everything we're doing. So.
Okay. Yeah, that brought back some memories. Major General Bilodeau, you mentioned something earlier on about when someone is released, their medical files, that there's an issue. And one of the things that the military, and this is a challenge that we're dealing with, it was standardization. And you're saying to us that there's an issue when someone is released and they go to a different province, that there's not a medical standard in which you can transfer those files. There's only Alberta and Nova Scotia that seems to be able to adapt to what you're...
I'll just ask that your response be as brief as you
Mr. President, I was referring to the electronic health record systems that are different in each provinces or each region of the same province, which prevents us from being able to develop that interface that would transfer directly the file from our records to the provincial or regional or local record in each hospital, I guess, that are out there. So that's a challenge. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you. And for our final round of questioning for the meeting, we will have 4 minutes from Mr. Churence Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chair, I don't have a particular question that I want to talk to the witnesses about, but I do want to say a big thank you for your testimony and the giving us the benefit of your experience. Many of you are very experienced and in senior positions, so it's great to hear from you this evening. And what I would do, though, is I would ask, as I've done many times, other committee members as they're testifying, is that if you think there's something that we need to know as a committee, or there's recommendations that you want to present to our committee, that you do that and forward it to our clerk, so that we as committee members will make sure that we don't miss what might be some very important points. I know when we talk about what witnesses have given us past testimonies, they've identified some very challenging issues that they face, and we keep focusing on how we can deal with that when they transition from the military to, I guess, a retirement or back into civilian life. So I'd appreciate any information that you can provide. So, Mr. Chair, that's the extent of what I want to do in the final slot here this evening. Thank you.
Is there any more time, Mr. Chair?
There is. I don't know if the witnesses had anything they want to say in response, but if not, you do have about 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Thank you. I want to follow up on Mr. Tommy's question because I won't make the mistake Mr. Desilets made. But Monsieur Bilodeau, ma question,
Mr. Bilodeau, my question aligns with his question. The electronic or digital files, medical files, and there's no... So in the last year, the government has tried to encourage the provinces to coordinate all of their medical files. So in the 2 provinces in question, what are they doing right that the other provinces are doing wrong? Can you give us a few examples? I know how it should be, But what really is happening on the ground? Well, Mr. Chair, I can't really comment on what's happening in the provinces with regard to their medical file system. Well, you mentioned 2 provinces who do have digital files. What I can say is that e-files or e-records are in full transformation now. We're at the 2nd or 3rd generation of e-documents, e-files. We have a better understanding of what we need, and there will be better standards to help us transfer data more easily in future. Right now, there are issues with their own e-files. They're 15 years old, and they're getting old. So we are also renewing these digital medical records because we don't know if they will be interoperable with provincial systems.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our witnesses for your excellent contributions tonight, and for the responses to all the questions. This will be where we'll adjourn the meeting. We'll see everybody back here to continue this study on Monday. So thanks again to our witnesses and to everyone. Meeting is adjourned.